But in order to get this over with, in order to defeat this regime, and let's make no mistake about it, that's what we have to do. We want them. If we don't want to have nukes, we have to defeat the regime. I refuse to call this a war. It's not a war. It's a military operation. I've been calling it that since day one. That's number one. I know what a war is. You know what a war is. Anybody that reads a history book knows what a war is. That's number one. Number two, to be even more accurate, it's a peace mission. If the regime in Iran goes, there'll be a lot more peace in the Middle East than elsewhere as far as I'm concerned.
All right, well, that was Mark Levin, who unfortunately has become a regular in the news lately because of his lust for war and slaughter, basically. And he's urging President Donald Trump, Cenk, to restart the war with Iran, which is unsurprising because Trump appears to have restarted the war with Iran. Before I give you the details, your 2 cents.
Yeah, first specifically on that, he says it's not a war, it's a military mission. And
it's a peace mission.
And then eventually a peace mission, sure. War is peace, and the essential command is that you ignore the evidence of your eyes and ears. George Orwell warned us about these Israelis much earlier, and that they would lie to us and they would become big brother and lord over us, and they have in the form of Mark Levin and almost everyone else in national media. So, and the reason he's saying that is because if it's a war, Congress has a vote on it. Congress doesn't want to all lose their jobs simultaneously because they serve Israel, and they would never defy Israel. They will definitely sanction this war and approve this war, but they don't want that on their record because then they might lose the next election. So Mark Levin's like, don't vote on it. We know the American people hate it, but we're gonna force it down their throats because we control all of your politicians. So you're gonna see a lot more of that, and what you're gonna see is a compelling case here for Israel first, all going out and saying, no, you must restart the war and you must go for regime change. We told you to have a full-scale war and you don't have a goddamn option. You must obey our commands. And after you see that, oh right, we did exactly as they demanded of us.
That was like more like $50 million, not 2 cents, Cenk.
Okay, that was a couple of dollars.
You know, let's keep it to 2 cents.
Let's
keep it to 2 cents. All right, so he had this guest on, and it's interesting because there are some military generals out there who have been doing amazing analysis and commentary about the war in Iran. And these are people I don't share politics with necessarily, but they're obviously experts. Colonel Daniel Davis is an example. Colonel Douglas Macgregor is another example. However, it's interesting. Fox News, cable news in general, and people like Mark Levin seem to find these like 2-bit Navy officers like Kirk Lippold, who keep goading Trump into escalating war with Iran, even though we have depleted our missile interceptors and it could put our troops at risk. Let's watch.
We have spent decades in the military with this thing called a proportional response. When you're dealing with a country that is in pursuit of a nuclear weapon, a proportional response is not an option. It must be overwhelmingly crushing the regime and their ability to reconstitute any type of nuclear program or any program whatsoever. They must be decisively defeated. And we should be in a position where we dictate the terms of surrender to them, not the other way around where they say, well, this is on the table, but not that. This is what we're willing to discuss, but we're going to keep it separate from that. No, these are the items that you have to meet and the criteria that you have to have in place in order for us to have a cessation of hostilities. And until we reach that point, we are going to continue to squeeze you economically and, if necessary, continue strikes against your leadership, the military, and all those sites that allow them to have a normal functioning country.
Very well said.
So in a minute, I'll get to all the reasons why the opening of the Strait of Hormuz cannot be accomplished militarily. In fact, if you consider the fact that we have 15,000 military personnel in the Middle East right now as we speak, and you compare that to the 250,000 troops that we had sent to Iraq, you kind of get a sense of how depleted we really are when it comes to a military option. And honestly, I don't think this former Navy officer doesn't know that. I think he does know that.
No, he's a traitor.
But he's egging it on anyway, knowing that our soldiers would get killed if they did what he is, urging them to do.
So I don't know if he works for the defense contractors or Israel or both.
Probably both.
But there's no way that that is a genuine opinion that he has. So he says, we have to direct their terms of surrender. Brother, if you were in the military and you understand what leverage is, and you understand that they have the Strait of Hormuz blocked, and we can't get any ships through, and especially today we tried, and are apparently, according to the Iranians, which are more credible, unfortunately, than our own government, and obviously a billion times more credible than the Israelis, our ships got hit. So this is a military thing that you should know, and it's not complicated. Everybody knows they control the Strait of Hormuz. So he's saying, who cares about their leverage? We should demand our terms of surrender be met completely. Otherwise, what? Otherwise, don't have peace. So it is a purposely impossible standard to make sure we never get to peace, because he wants Americans to die in this war. He wants Americans to pay for this war, because a benefactor of his is going to make a lot of money or have an advantage from this war. He's a giant liar, and I think all of these guys are traitors.
Yeah.
And if you notice, Mark Levin and Ben Ferguson and all of them had this little lapel pin that they used to be so proud of, that it had the American flag and the Israeli flag. And then they got caught on it, including a debate I had with Ben Ferguson.
I remember.
On Piers Morgan. They all now have taken that off and put a larger American flag as if they're on our side. As they tell you, go die for Israel. Go back into the war. We're never going to end it. And you're going to do exactly as Israel and the defense contractors tell you to do. So that's just the beginning, but there's more traitors that Anna's going to show you now.
Exactly. So why don't we get to John Bolton? Because of course, John Bolton has been egging on war with Iran for decades. I mean, this isn't something new for him.
Picture this, it's midnight, you're lying in bed, scrolling through Shop TYT, of course. Excited to buy that new Dragon Squad snapback you've had your eye on, but your wallet's on the other side of the room. Then you see the purple Shop Pay button, which has your payment and shipping information saved and ready to go. That seamless checkout experience is thanks to Shopify. They're making it so easy to buy your next piece of TYT merch. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US, including ours. Shopify gives you that leg up on the competition with hundreds of beautiful ready-to-go templates to express your brand's unique style. Tackle all those essential tasks in one place, from inventory to payments to analytics, and expand your brand reach with built-in marketing and email tools. Super helpful. And I already mentioned that awesome purple Shop Pay button. It's why Shopify has the best converting checkout on the planet. See fewer carts go abandoned and more sales go with their Shopify and their Shop Pay button. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/TYT. Go to shopify.com/TYT. That's shopify.com/TYT.
And yesterday, Bolton, who happens to be Trump's former national security advisor, stated that while he would love for Trump to go back into Iran, he would settle for another option. What is that other option? Let's watch.
I think the United States holds a great advantage here, but it hasn't finished the job that was started. My definition of finishing the job is ousting the regime in Tehran, but there are steps less than that that Trump could take, and I'm a little surprised that he hasn't done it. For example, if he were to use military force to open the Strait of Hormuz, which does not involve going back to the kinds of attacks we saw 3 or 4 weeks ago, if he could do that but keep the blockade on Iranian oil shipments, that would continue to put a huge financial squeeze on Iran, but would get a lot of much needed oil out of the Gulf and into international markets. I think that is certainly something he can do to up the pressure, keep things moving, and avoid having to make some of the choices he clearly doesn't want to make and shouldn't have to make.
Considering the fact that there isn't currently a sound military option to force the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, what the Trump administration has attempted to do is help to allow vessels to travel or transit through the Strait of Hormuz as the United States attempts to shoot down Iranian missiles and drones. But that hasn't been working out so well. In fact, that has restarted the war with Iran, which is clearly something that John Bolton and clearly something that people like Mark Levin desperately wanted in the first place. So there's that. But what other solutions does this genius have? Like, what else does John Bolton think needs to happen? And honestly, he gives the whole game away here. He's about to tell you who he works for. Let's watch.
How concerned are you, or should we be, about the US munitions situation?
Well, I don't think it's an imminent concern, but the big picture is absolutely right. 4 decades, really, 3.5 decades, I'll be specific, since the collapse of the Soviet Union, we have dramatically underspent on defense budgets. And it's come home to roost in a number of ways, one of which is the depletion of our arsenals, both because of aid to Ukraine and the current war, but mostly because our estimates of the rate of expenditure of missiles and ammunition in conflict turned out to be well below what has actually been happening in Ukraine and in the war with Iran. So we need a huge increase in the defense budget. Trump has proposed that for the next fiscal year.
We are already spending $1 trillion a year on our defense budget. We're spending more on defense than any other country. In fact, we spend more on defense than like the other top 5 countries combined. Like that's, okay. Trump has asked for $1.5 trillion for the defense budget. And look, our missile interceptors have been depleted by 80%. So the idea that you're gonna open the Strait of Hormuz by shooting down Iranian missiles and drones and those little speedboats, that's not a real solution. It's not gonna work, it's not gonna last long, clearly. And we don't have the manufacturing capacity here in the United States to build the weapons quick enough to compete with Iran's super cheap and easy to produce drones. Okay, like what are we doing? The only way out of this is through diplomacy, and that's exactly what they want to avoid. And Cenk, didn't he just give the whole game away right there? I mean, he's like talking about how we need to spend more money on defense. Who's paying you, Bolton? Who you work for? The defense industry? The people who are gonna make money off the backs of American taxpayers through these insanely bloated defense budgets? And sorry, we're not as influential as we used to be. We're not living in a unipolar world anymore. It's a multipolar world, and we're still forgetting about the fact that Russia and China are involved in this. Not directly yet, but Iran is an ally of theirs. China is reliant on Iranian oil, and they're getting increasingly frustrated. So what are we doing?
Yeah, so guys, this is the most important part. When they're in unison, that means they all got a new talking point from their boss. And so you're gonna see one more clip from somebody else completely on a completely different show, but yet he has the same exact talking points. And what you'll see is same talking points from the media figures, the pundits, etc., and the politicians, because they all have, not all, but a lot of them have Israeli handlers, and the Israeli handlers literally hand them new talking points. You're to say this and this. And what I noticed in that appearance was, regime change is back. They had quieted down about regime change because it seemed impossible and ridiculous given the situation, but they're now talking about it again. Now, what does that mean? I'm gonna tell you ahead of time now. That means we're probably gonna put in ground troops, because you don't talk about regime change unless you intend to put in ground troops. So they're signaling ahead of time. I mean, you're gonna have to, there's no way you can do this without the ground troops. You need to do regime change, and we gotta go into the middle of Iran, like Isfahan and all those places smack dab in the middle of Iran. Well, we're gonna need ground troops. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. And then you gotta see who told you the truth and who lied to you and who lied to you on purpose. Okay, so now what's interesting about the Levins of the world is, even though he has almost negative viewership, like no viewership to speak of at all, both him and now Shapiro as well, not in the top 200 of shows, okay? But it's weird how the entire media goes, now everyone watch Mark Levin. Why are we all being directed to watch Mark Levin? Because Mark Levin has an official message from the Israelis, that's why, okay? And so now he's the bad cop, and he goes out there and goes, we gotta kill all the Muslims! The Muslims are dirt, they're trash, kill them all, right? And the New York Times is the good cop. This is like Republicans and Democrats. And like the Democrats, the New York Times job is to go, well, I guess Mark Levin said that, and that's, hey, what are you gonna do? And it's not like we could report the truth to you guys. There was nothing we could do. There was nothing we could do. We had to go back into war, and they nukes. Let's have a real debate about whether they have nukes or not. Even though they're all liars and they know that they're not anywhere near nukes, and they've offered to never make nukes, right? So that's how this game is played. But lastly, this is really important for this round, and then we're gonna give you more pundits. When they all come in at the same time, that means a decision is coming. Israel has made their decision. Now, because I was not sure, remember we had this conversation for the last couple of weeks. I mean, this war has been an absolute disaster for us and for Trump. So Trump looked like he really didn't want to go back in. But we were all waiting for Israel to make the decision. Why would Israel back out? Because they were running low on defensive missiles. And I guess they feel confident that they've reloaded and they're locked and loaded at this point. And they made a decision, no, we want Lebanon and we can't get southern Lebanon unless the Iran war continues. So now that they've made a decision, it's a fait accompli, it's over. We don't control our own government. From now on, we will go deeper into the war, and I think ground troops are likely because Israel has made their decision.
It's honestly befuddling to me why, honestly, look, the heart of the problem is Israel. The reason why we're in this war is because of Israel. And I get that Iran, unlike the United States and Israel in terms of their conduct in this war, has a little more honor, and they're specifically targeting US military bases, actual military targets. And then the oil and gas infrastructure in the Gulf region, and it's a strategic decision they've made. Maybe up the ante when it comes to Israel, since they're the heart of the problem. Am I not right? I mean, think about it. If Israel thinks we can withstand more war with Iran, well, then show them that they can't.
Yeah, look, it doesn't, at this point, the die is cast. Israel's made their decision. So what we're gonna have is more war. And I'll tell you what happens at the end too. At some point, we're not gonna have a choice. It doesn't matter how much blackmail they have on Trump. Trump might leave office, they might release the blackmail, but at some point we have to bring the guys back home because we can't do an Iraq-style ground invasion of Iran. That's mental. I mean, at some point, we're gonna run into two catastrophes. One is they're either gonna sink one of our giant ships or we're gonna lose a lot of guys on the ground and go, oh, no one could have seen us losing this many men on the ground, right? And the economy, not just for the US, but the entire world is going to be so pulverized that the whole world is going to be in a rage. Get the hell out of there. This is unacceptable. So when we leave, then the question is, what happens between Iran and Israel? And
who cares?
And no, I'll tell you, at that point, I don't know why anybody would root for Israel. Israel's the one that started all the wars. Israel's the one that's dragged us into the wars, cost us trillions of dollars. They've stolen our nuclear secrets, murdered our citizens and gotten away with it. Come here for sexual tourism, to rape our kids, and then, by the way, maybe use it as blackmail against our own politicians, etc. So no, Israel is not an ally. Israel is a bit of I don't know that they're an enemy. They just view us as suckers to rob and to drive into war so that we die instead of them. You want me to root for them? No, I will definitely not root for Israel. And they're the ones who wanted this war. And so after we withdraw, none of our guys get hurt. Iran, have at it, Hoss.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.